G'day guys, Justin here, coming at you with another NBA Player of the Day video, this time for the 31st of October 2017, the last Player of the Day for October, obviously, and we had a very limited amount of players to choose from. Nothing really standout-ish about the Los Angeles-Detroit game. We had Devin Booker playing well for Phoenix as well. In their game against Brooklyn, you had D'Angelo Russell playing well. We also had Giannis Antetokounmpo being the only player entering double digits for the Bucks. In their game, they unfortunately went down to the OKC Thunder. Paul George finally coming out and playing a decent game, Melo playing a decent game, and not much really happening in the way of Indiana. Who did Indiana play? Indiana and Sacramento, I think it was. Wasn't much going on there. So many people will be surprised that I didn't pick Devin Booker, but I do feel that the player of the day for the 31st of October 2017 was Mike James of the Phoenix Suns in their win versus Brooklyn. Mind you, in Brooklyn's house too, so it's surprising to see Phoenix travel all that way and get the win. With a total impact score of .262, James had 24 points and 3 rebounds, one of those being offensive, so that 2-to-1 offensive ratio, offensive to defensive ratio seemed to work pretty well there, along with the 5 assists, had 4 steals and a block, 56.3% shooting, 75% from deep and 100% from the stripe, so an overall efficient night here from Mike James. Had the 4 turnovers, so negated his passing game a little bit, but only had the 1 foul, mind you, on the defensive effort. In 29 minutes of play. One thing I noticed about today is a lot of players had very limited game time. I think there was only half a dozen players that actually cracked the 30-minute mark of a possible 48 minutes, which was surprising to see. I don't know whether that's a tactic or whatnot, but it didn't seem very effective for a few teams, particularly teams like the Bucks, where you could have had a Giannis play a hell of a lot more minutes to be a little bit more effective. Again, he was the only person that entered double-digit scoring. He had 28 points. Next closest person had 9, so a bit of an uneven spread scoring-wise for the Bucks. But anyway, back to the Suns. The 4 turnovers does negate the passing game, but his ability to get back defensively and make those 4 steals certainly negates some of those, if not all of those turnovers. So reasonably efficient there. So without further ado, let's get into it. I mean, it was noted that it was the Devin Booker versus D'Angelo Russell show, but Mike James, to me, was more impactful and certainly had more of a presence about him in this game. He began with a corner 3 over a late closing D'Angelo Russell following the pass from Devin Booker, who penetrated the defense there. D'Angelo started the game on Mike James, but he certainly wasn't on him for very long. We then had a 3-point jumper from the 45 with the exact same scenario again, a late closing D'Angelo Russell and the assist from Devin Booker. So back-to-back identical players almost there for the Suns, difference being the shooter's position. He then had a dribble penetration around D'Angelo Russell and managed to score a floater over Timofey Mozgov at the rim. Mozgov's just become nothing at this point. I mean, he was never anything to begin with, but he's literally just filling a spot on a roster. In my opinion, and the Nets are known to pick up very, very, very terrible contracts, and he happens to be one of them, just another list for them. He then got the steal off of Mozgov, who was dribbling down towards the post area, began to post up. Obviously, James got the steal. He then drove full court and scored the layup over DeMario Carroll, another player whose defensive ability certainly seems to have dropped in recent times. I mean, for a side like Brooklyn, who's never been a stellar defensive team, it would have thought the onus would be on him to grow a little bit more and do a little bit more as far as that end of the court's concerned. He then intercepted a bounce pass from D'Angelo Russell that was intended for DeMario Carroll on the cut, but nonetheless he managed to steal that ball and fast break all the way down and get the pass off to Devin Booker, who managed to take the one dribble step back for the jumper over Tyler Zeller. So again, 2 guards working in tandem, which are very, very effective. It's just a matter of trying to build a better squad around them. But yeah, these 2 guards are very capable. They're more than capable, that's for sure. But I mean, then big is Alex Len. Really, you're not going to do much with him. He then faked using the screen from Alex Len. Hey, here he is. And he dribbled and floated around and scored over Tyler Zeller again for 2. So there is that ability to use bigs. It's just they don't have quality bigs there. I mean, Alex Len's good for a screen and roll and a couple of rebounds, but that's about it. Let's be honest. He then lost the dribble to Dimwitty, so a turnover here, one of the turnovers he had, and he chased the length of the court. And for a guy his size, absolutely launched himself for the block on Demario Carroll, who was screaming at the top of his lungs after it. Not sure whether he wanted the foul on the contact after it or whether he thought it was a goaltend, but it was clearly a block from Mike James there. And for those of you confused, yes, I am talking about young Mike James, 55 for the Suns, and not old-ass Mike James that would probably be about 46 now that played in the 2000s. He then had an open corner three in which he made over a contesting Demario Carroll following the assist by Jackson of the Suns. This was just a matter of him getting out in space and the floor and really playing the weak side of the D there. He got spaced out, obviously open for the three and made that. He then intercepted a Hollis Jefferson pass, which was intended to D'Angelo Russell. He absolutely pickpocketed here. It was obvious pass that was always going to go there, and he went the length of the floor and of the open floor, mind you, and rose really high for the jam, which was something that was pretty impressive. I think I've missed a whole heap here. Yeah, sorry, I missed the oh no, have I? Yeah, I did. Sorry, I missed there was a play there a few plays back just before the corner three for over Carroll from Jackson. He managed to dribble actually into the D and he passed out to the 45 for an open three to Devin Booker. This was something that he managed to do. He drew a lot of isolation plays and a lot of trap defenses just with his penetration dribble, which allowed for these pass outs, and this was no exception. So again, he intercepted the Hollis Jefferson pass from Russell and went the length of the floor for the jam. He then, again, a lot of these ISOs were at the end of the game, which is something that I'll bring up in a second. The ISO dribble on Hollis Jefferson, he penetrated to the top of the circle and rose for the jumper for two. When looking at the screen, is on the right-hand side of the screen, closest to the bottom of the television. As you see him drive up, he just got to the right-hand side of the circle as you look towards the hoop, and he scored the basket. He played Hollis Jefferson quite well here. He then used the screen from Tyson Chandler on D'Angelo Russell. He dribbled to the cup and kicked back out to Bender, who was open for the three. This was another one, as I said, he was able to penetrate the D, and if not penetrate the D, collapse the D and hit the open man. And this was just another exception, which he did at the end of the game. He was then in an isolation situation with D'Angelo Russell. He penetrated to the hoop and was met by Hollis Jefferson, to which point he tried the up and under. The only problem with the up and under was that it missed. However, we have no bigs under the hoop for Brooklyn and no intent by Hollis Jefferson to get back. It was a pretty easy offensive rebound made here by James, to which point he made the layup. So the one offensive rebound he did have of the three total rebounds he had was, right in the clutch and right at the right moment. So that's how he played out, and that's how my player of the day works for today, the 31st of October, 2016. Mike James. Total impact score of .262 in a win versus the Brooklyn Nets. Both he and Devin Booker playing very well against D'Angelo Russell. 24 points, 3 rebounds, one of those offensive, 5 assists, 4 steals and a block on 56.3% shooting. So again, the jumper was working and his ability just to get to the hoop and not get touched was also working. 75% from deep, so the outside shot when he wasn't able to get inside was effective, and 100% from the stripe when fouled. 4 turnovers is questionable. I mean, I did mention, I'll get to that in a second, which is another reason why I feel the Suns are lacking. But as I mentioned, with the 4 turnovers, the 4 steals almost negates that and helps improve his passing game. The 1 foul on the defensive end works well as well. Was pretty efficient on that end of the court. And all of this in about 29 minutes of play. So quite a good game for Mike James. But as I mentioned, the thing that is going to cost the Suns, other than the big man, is their isolation play. They tend to rely on a lot of isolation dribble, a lot of isolation penetration. Even though in a game like today, they were able to successfully kick it out from a trap situation or where they played right into the defense's hands, teams that actually can play defense and have a better structure will expose them. When you've got 2 young guards who primarily rely on their ball handling and their penetration, and they're not able to get it done, they often get caught, they often get trapped. Again, in the situation with Dinwiddie, just a prime example of where they've tried the isolation defense, they've tried the isolation one-on-one, the defense has managed to get a hold of the ball and they haven't had anything to go to other than trying to dribble and get around their defender. I think they need to open up and really look at more passing options, particularly the Suns. Obviously, not having a big is going to hurt when you don't have a point guard that's predominantly able to pass. So you do rely on your point in year two to obviously score. But if the team was able to acquire these bigs, they wouldn't need to rely so much on having these isolation offense situations. They could rely more on the bigs to give them the ball and facilitate the ball, or instead they could use these bigs that aren't just relying on screens to score as well, so their passing game can open up. At which point, when you're relying on a big to score and a small to score, who do you guard? It's up to you. Devin Booker's proven to be a capable scorer. It's just a matter of Phoenix getting a big guy that can score. Tyson Chandler's more of a guy plugging a hole at the moment. He's able to rim protect at times. He's able to play a little bit of defense. He's not the player he was when he won Defensive Player of the Year. Not that he deserved it, but he's more relied upon now to set screens and grab rebounds. He's just a rich man's version of Alex Len at the moment. So, as I mentioned, they need to get a big man that's able to play both ways on the floor and facilitate the ball. Otherwise, they're going to be permanently stuck just relying on two guards who rely on an isolation offense and aren't able to really get around defenders at times. I mean, as I mentioned, you're only playing someone like Brooklyn. It's not like they're an effective. They're not the greatest defensive team going about. Now, I mean, you look at guys like a Chris Paul. Chris Paul's able to capably defend. They would struggle. Guys like a Patrick Beverley, capable defender, would struggle. Even a Tony Allen, when you've got a guard that's on fire, is willing to step up and take the role there. So there's a lot of problems facing that. I mean, you've only got to look at the likes of when they face quality point guards. I mean, look at the stacked roster of point guards that New Orleans have. There's always going to be trouble there. And you've only got to look at the way the guards play. If you look at a Duke going up against someone like a Jimmy Butler, that could also be a problem. Victor Oladipo, although not defensively minded, has that capability to almost open and expose people there. Ben Simmons has quite a lot of length too, so he could also cause some problems if not careful. But as I mentioned, if they're able to get these bigs that can play both ends of the floor and not rely on just pick and rolls and trying to escape from an isolation dribble where they get forced into a defensive trap, then I think the Suns will be right. But until they do that and they get some experienced heads in the locker room, they're going to continue to swell and wallow down the bottom of the Western Conference, unfortunately. Anyway, guys, that's been me. Thank you very much for listening. Chuck a thumbs up button on the video. Leave a comment. Let me know who your player of the day was. Have I missed anyone that deserved any recognition? How you think the scoring system is going, blah, blah, blah. How you think Phoenix will go for the rest of the year. Obviously, a lot of work to do, as mentioned, with Devin Booker and Mike James being relied upon while you have no bigs to back them up or real credible defenders. Hit me up on Twitter, Justin_G_Bryan, always talking hoops, politics, general life. And again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for daily NBA updates. So again, my player of the day for the 31st of October 2017 has been Mike James of the Phoenix Suns in a win on the road against Brooklyn. 24 points and 3 rebounds, one of those offensive. 5 assists, 4 steals and a block, 56.3% shooting. He was able to make that jumper from deep at 75%. Obviously, if it wasn't going to fall, he's going to score inside anyway. 100% from the stripe. And 4 turnovers doesn't look that great, but when you have the 4 steals, you can more than make up for that. A 1 personal foul across those 5 defensive stats, it does look pretty good, although it depends how you really want to look at it. In only 29 minutes, so pretty limited play. Again, thank you very much for watching. That's been my player of the day for the 31st of October 2017, Mike James versus the Brooklyn Nets.